me first ask you to introduce yourself and the fact that you're a co-founder of these two things.
Sure, yeah. I'm Mark Wexler, co-founder of Just Business and Not For Sale. And
so you're building another new entity here under the auspices of Just Business.
Yes.
And you're in one of the most competitive landscapes for talent in the world.
Yeah.
The kind of talent that you're trying to recruit has intriguing options at little companies like Apple and Google. So what's that climate been like for attracting talent, and what do you find to be the kind of differentiators getting people to come and do something that's got a social impact orientation?
Yeah. In regards to recruiting talent today, I think it's almost easier to start with the social proposition of, do you want to create real positive change in the world? Oh, and you're going to use business to do that? Rather than, why don't you join a behemoth company and you're going to affect change within a division of that company. It's just harder for a really ambitious Harvard, Stanford, Cal grad to see themselves in a behemoth rather than being a part of a nimble, very active entity that is also creating real change. And we can prove that change on a quarterly basis as we put out quarterly impact reports in terms of our social impact. And so in terms of talent acquisition, there's no doubt. I mean, all you have to do is read the tea leaves or reports that are being done by Deloitte that says millennials care more and more about one, where their products are being produced, how they're being produced, but also, this is really important in terms of talent acquisition, is the company they're joining, does it have a positive impact on the world? And if it doesn't, they're using their feet and going other places. So many of the more recent hires that we're bringing on board into our ecosystem are people who have a choice. Is it Apple, is it Google, or is it Just Business, or Not For Sale? It's really fascinating to see that kind of evolution in terms of talent acquisition. Yeah.
So you've just moved headquarters into San Francisco.
Yeah.
Is the competition for talent any different here? Is the social impact drive and the kind of talent that you're talking to also any different here? Any better here? Especially with your kind of drive to creating new business models and attacking the kind of the challenges that you are through business and through new for-profit approaches. Is it any easier to find that talent here? Is it any different here?
Yeah, it's easier to find talent in San Francisco rather than Half Moon Bay. I mean, we were just having the talented people drive down the coast. But I really view it's kind of been a coming out party the last 3 or 4 months as we've really moved into the city. Because there's a lot of people who have heard about us, but they really don't know what we do or how we do it. And so now that we're physically here, it's become almost this vortex of interest. And we're getting into conversations with city leaders, whether they be business leaders or government leaders or what have you, cultural leaders, that now we get to share our learnings from the last decade and shifting people from a place of, I've heard of you, but I don't really know what you do, to being able to sit down and have a coffee with them, and they're blown away. And what's great about the model is that it's an onboarding model, so that they're going, I love what you do, I want to do X, Y, Z with you. So it's not I love what you do, we'll see you later, maybe once a year. It's literally a way to incorporate and to help kind of spur them into action in partnership with us, whether it be through business creation and or partnership through the nonprofit.
I was just about to ask you sort of a question about what pieces you outsource, and it sounds like you have a little bit of an activation twist there for getting people involved in mobilizing networks. So can you answer both those questions? What pieces of the business model do you outsource? And then how do you harness the kind of volunteer interest that you get just in people that discover you?
So in terms of outsourcing some of the pieces of the puzzle, right now it's some of the infrastructure pieces, some of our finance pieces are outsourced, but that's very quickly getting to a place where it makes more sense to bring it in-house in terms of the finances. And that day has already passed. It's just a matter of finding the right people to bring them in-house. So our shared services are becoming more and more robust across all the portfolio enterprises. But really, the main one right now is the finances. And then the legal components, but we've just brought on an in-house legal air traffic control cop, because there's so many moving parts in terms of the legal, because we have a wall between not for sale. Not for sale works with Latham Watkins. Just Business works with Jones Day. And so we keep those two apart so that there's a real legal wall between the two. But there are still some of the enterprises that are being bubbled out of not for sale. Actually, those are being bubbled out of not for sale, and Latham Watkins is still taking those on.
You talked a bit about pro bono time, I think, or that might have been Gabriel. Anyway, so you have great volunteers that help build the not for sale model. So you've moved in the city where you've got a new level of visibility. You've got a lot of people sort of discovering what you do through your kind of media approach and telling your story. How do you harness that interest in what you're trying to do? And capitalize on the opportunity that people can contribute to the impact model.
Exactly. So a perfect example of that would be on a company level, like a company like Latham Watkins law firm. They realized they could quickly plug in to us, and we could plug into them, and they've now taken on us as a global pro bono client, and it helps us scale the entire ecosystem. Because Latham has become a template, that's led to Gensler here in San Francisco. Gensler sees the same model that Latham's been deploying and says, wow, as you plant new invention hubs around the world, we want to be your design partner for free. Deloitte here in San Francisco, we've just started to engage with them, and they're saying, well, could we help with you on your financial infrastructure? Because that's really complex. You've got multiple entities, you're constantly spinning off new entities. We'd love to be the financial engine to that, so that we can tell the story about recreating or reinventing local economy, as well as fighting human trafficking around the world. And so it has become a great way to onboard globally recognized partners, which then helps us build our brand, because we're collaborating and partnering with and receiving services from some of the most prestigious leaders within their respective fields that we're hoping to harvest their services.
So they're all helping you build this kind of network of invention hubs. Can you talk about what that network looks like today? Where they've popped up and where else you're trying to percolate these ideas?
So today we have a global footprint, but when you look at our projects right now that are in Thailand, in Romania, Peru, Amsterdam, and here in San Francisco, the global ones look more like a traditional nonprofit, working directly on kind of direct service, working with survivors. Where we would like to move is to be more upstream in terms of our social impact, and start to plant these invention hubs in those locations. So today's our invention hub here in San Francisco is our first. It's in startup phase itself, and we want to kind of prove out the model that it's something that can grow and scale here in the Bay Area. We have people clamoring for it already in places like Bangalore, India, where I'll be in 3 weeks, in Bogota, Colombia, as well as Amsterdam and the other places where we have projects. But I guess it's part of our kind of, I hate to say it, but it's really part of our theory of change, where right now we're playing in a kind of downstream, and we're working with survivors around the world, and we want to continue to enable that work, but we want to be empowering entrepreneurs on a local level to be again, shifting the way business interacts in a community like Bangalore, or here in San Francisco, or in Amsterdam. And also, so empowering entrepreneurs on one end and creating new avenues for people who have been exploited or at risk. And not for sale business in the Invention Hub, and is facilitating and providing grants to local groups that are working with survivors and creating the on-ramp into the Invention Hub where we're actually creating jobs that are leading people into to the sustainable futures that we really want to have in those communities. So our first Invention Hub is here in San Francisco, but our vision is to have them in iconic locations around the world where there's trafficking occurring, but that it allows us to tell that story of what it means to turn the tide on something that's as horrific as slavery.
So you're doing this at a time that lots of Fortune 500 companies are kind of reevaluating their own approaches to open innovation.
Yep.
So here you're dealing with ideation and creative kind of forces for the things you're trying to percolate along.
Yep.
And there are a host of these Fortune 500 companies kind of arriving in the Bay Area and in California generally in new ways every day.
Yep.
Do you find that, well, certainly you're not alone in social impact kind of approaches to entrepreneurship. There are incubators like Tummel that is a civic innovation kind of approach. Fuse Core itself, we talked about. So do you find that there's a different kind of community of those folks here? Is the same thing true in Los Angeles? Is it true in Boston? How would you compare kind of clusters of innovation and the kind of forces that come together to create social impact innovation?
Good question. From my experience, the Bay Area is very unique in terms of social impact and social entrepreneurship in some respects because of the tech space. It's just a different flavor to the social entrepreneurship space here in the Bay Area. It tends to take on more of a tech orientation. But I think that I've talked to a number of people about this. There's just a certain energy that you get in the Bay Area that's a little bit different than other places that I've been to that I think there's great work happening in other places around the world, but there's just a certain energy, culture that I don't even know how you define it necessarily, but it attracts a certain person, it attracts a certain orientation again around this kind of aggressive humility piece where people are running hard and really wanting to whether it be personal or from the companies they work in, they really want to see it succeed. And it can be challenging sometimes in the places where we want to work to find people who share that same type of approach and energy. I think we've lucked out in many of the places where we work. Even in the place proving Amazon, I think the individuals that we've empowered there have the same mindset. Bangalore, India, same thing. People we've empowered there and we work with have a very different kind of entrepreneurial mindset that's very similar to one that we have here, but there's not the same support infrastructure around it that there is here in the Bay Area.
Mark Wexler is not for sale. Thank you,
That's
Mark.
right.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
great.
thank you. Yeah. Thanks for thinking of us as well.
Temples of Technology is produced in Northern California by the California Technology Council.